country, no parades to line your way. Though your hands may bleed and your body may lie broken, every storm must soon give way. Raise your head up high, raise your head up high, so the heavens hear you cry. Light the brightest fire from the highest mountain, so the whole world knows that your spirit can't be broken. The rage you feel will consume you and destroy.
Okay. I'm going to slide that music out in the back, and I'm going to bring up something a little bit more just ambient for the rest of this, and I hope you'll just deal with me for a moment. Give me a moment. Actually, let's see, Space 10 out. How is everybody doing, by the way? And I'm going to open this up with actually, beyond that, a warning that this cast may contain a little bit of light profanity, and there will be one violent image at the very end. So, yeah, I'm going to put this space, some space ambient stuff up here. There we go. Nice and rumbly. Just sort of an ambient doom, maybe. Okay, so this is a rebroadcast of something that I posted yesterday on YouTube, and unfortunately, the video, it was not very tightly presented, and also it was taken down by YouTube because it contained some copyrighted video at the end. So I wanted to take an opportunity this evening while Peace Island is building in the background. You can see it right here. Just bring this down. You can see it's building right there in the background. But this doesn't have anything to do with Peace Island. It has to do with what happened 2 days ago. Now, and of course that has to do with the election that recently occurred here. Now, I want to open this up for those who may have opened this video and don't know who the heck I am. And really, I think that there are too many people on YouTube spewing nonsense without, informing people of who they are. So, pardon me. Been eating garlic as always. My name is Eric Blumreich. I am a first-generation American. My father came over here from Austria after World War II. I'm a game developer. I'm an animator and a graphic artist. I worked on the first episode of Dora the Explorer, and I've been a media staffer for 2 presidential campaigns. And you'll see I have my script. Let's just see if I can point. Yeah, the script right over here so that you could follow along. Because I understand that I may speak imprecisely and sometimes a little bit too fast. I'm going to try and keep that at a low minimum this time and speak as clearly and as definitively as I can. Now, so you can follow along here. But I've also been, considering it's 2024, it has now been 40 years since I first volunteered for a political campaign, and that was the presidential race of 1984. I was an invited speaker at JFK University's Institute of Policy and Democracy on the Internet. The New York Times called me the inventor of the do-it-yourself political attack ad. That was in their Year in Ideas edition of 2004. Now, with that as my background, I want to introduce where I'm going this evening by telling you a little story from a decade ago, and it's going to be very short. As I mentioned right here, I have worked as a graphic artist and an animator in times past. Now, when I was working as a graphic artist, sometimes I would just do, work for pro bono. If the job was, unique and interesting enough. One of those jobs that came my way was designing the convention graphics for the 2014 Communist Party USA convention. That is my design banner in the background. I did other stuff for them, including some video, loops and such, because they streamed their convention. And when we were going into this convention, while I was designing their graphics, I asked them, actually I should keep it over here. By the way, I'm not a member. The reason I took the job, by the way, if anybody is curious, the Communist Party's USA has only had, at that point, 30 conventions. That means there were only 29 other people who got to do this graphic design job. That is an exclusive job. It is a prestige job. I was proud to do it. Just, would I have done the same for a Nazi party? Absolutely not. So anyway, moving on from that. When I was creating these graphics, I spoke to one of the party members, and I asked them, what is a theme for this year's convention? Because I would like to integrate that into graphics. And he said, well, Eric, we are thinking of breaking up the Communist Party USA and forming committees of correspondence like we did in World War II, in the lead up to World War II, because we believe that the United States of America is on the verge of descending into fascism. And, I thought to myself, it's going to be very hard to really put that on a banner or something, so I went with this motif. And understand at that time, this was during the Obama administration and the latter part, and things were looking good as far as the progressive and in the progressive cause of the United States, and basically the United States in general. We were looking good, and I said, no, there's absolutely no way. How could this happen? And 2 years later, we all learned, and today, 2 days ago, we learned again. And I think here's the thing: is I scoffed at that when I heard that. And I if anybody says, do you regret doing work for the Communist Party? No, again, because it was a prestige job. And also, looking back, that person was giving me a warning. That guy, he was giving me a warning, and I did not heed it. So that's where we find ourselves today. Now, we have to understand what happened on election night here in the United States 2 days ago. I know that Donald Trump will say, as he always does, that it is the greatest victory in presidential voting history. It's, in our nation. And of course, if all the legal votes were counted, he would have won all 50 states. But the one thing that is absolutely certain is that Trump got fewer votes than last time. And that's with his people controlling so many precincts and so many secretaries of state positions all around the United States. He still got fewer votes than he did last time, but he won because a majority of people on the other side of the political spectrum could not bring themselves to vote for various reasons. I guarantee you, for the Muslim community, it was for example, in Michigan, it was the ongoing genocide in Gaza. And for other people, here's the thing. I am not going to point fingers in this video here. And I'm just going to say the reasons that I believe are basically racism and sexism. That's simply put, because on one side we had a man, 34 times convicted felon, rapist. We know what happened the last time he occupied that office. But we could not bring ourselves out to vote, if not for Harris, then against a return to one of the darkest chapters in American history. And that is a damning indictment of our political education as a country. And this is something that is absolutely, simple. And it really didn't hit me until I watched a broadcast, I think via the Times London Times radio podcast. They had somebody, they were interviewing an author, and she pointed out in the United States, we have always been on the warpath against communism. We have had Red Scares. I think it is still illegal to be a member of a communist party here in the United States. How the Communist Party USA gets around that's another thing entirely. I couldn't even explain it entirely. But if let's put it this way. If you were a member of a communist party any time in your life, and you were not the father of Donald Trump's wife, you would not be allowed to emigrate to the United States. You just would not. If you're a member of a fascist party or a former Nazi, you would be able to get into the United States as a citizen. You'd be able to apply. I know this because of my own family history, which I've made very clear in times past. We're not going to go into that because this is not about me. Anyway, as somebody, I could tell you, like I said before, I worked as a media staffer for 2 presidential campaigns, and I have been a politics addict. Ever since, that was my thing. I never gave a crap about sports, but man, anything about an election, I was there because I believed that it mattered. Who gives a crap about like who wins the Super Bowl or the Stanley Cup or anything, because it automatically resets to 0. Nothing really matters as a result other than bragging rights. Whereas in politics, I believed at a certain point in my life, that it was the fantastic. It was our brilliant democracy working, and warts and all. But anyway, I could tell you, Harris ran a near perfect campaign. If not one of the best campaigns that I have seen in following politics for almost a half of a century. Again, if she lost, I believe because of no fault of her own. The reason that she lost, even though Trump got fewer votes than he did before, speaks to something very, very dark in our country. I may touch on little bits of that and as the narrative continues in this video. Now, why I am saying this, I've never been very quiet about my political leanings. I am stridently leftist. I can't even identify as a liberal because that's too compromising for me. Not a communist, maybe, a democratic socialist, I'd say. However, having been around politics for so many decades, I recognize game wherever it exists. And yet, while I disagreed with Ronald Reagan on a hell of a lot of stuff, he spoke some very simple homespun truisms that are 100% true, and you should live by them. Sometimes people you disagree with say some very just plainly smart things. And one of the things that Ronald Reagan said time and time again was, when somebody tells you who they are, believe them. Now, this is important to repeat. When somebody tells you who they are, believe them. From here on out, I'm going to be saying some stuff about Donald Trump. Now, understand, I'm pretty sure that some people will be posting right now down in the comments. This is just a video full of hate toward this guy. These guys are just full of hate and resentment and butthurt. No. Shh. You can go ahead and write that, but it's going to be deleted because that's just idiotic. No. I just want to tell that person before you even type that. Everything that I'm going to say, in conjunction with Donald Trump and his forthcoming agenda, and what we are to expect from a second presidency, or a second real occupancy of the White House. He has no interest in being president, but that's another subject entirely. Everything that I'm going to say from this point onward in the video is based solely and 100% on either things that Donald Trump said or or people that were very close to him in his campaign, in his most recent campaign, has said. Okay? So if you want to call me, if anybody down in the comments is writing about how I am full of hate, that their ire is misdirected. So let's proceed. Now, one last disclaimer here. What I am offering here is from my own perspective, and independent of whatever either Kamala Harris or the Democratic Party does from this point onward. As you'll learn coming up, we are due for one of the most catastrophic realignments in our political history. But for those who are watching this, who are on my side of things, I'm pretty sure that yesterday you woke up feeling really badly. And today you're feeling maybe a little bit better. And so I want to give you some things to keep in mind going forward, okay? And this is the number one thing, because the number one thing important here is you and your health. Take care of yourself. And you need to understand you are not alone. And if you doubt that, look, you're watching this video. I am here, right here. I'm with you. And trust me, a majority of Americans are with us on this. And a majority of the people of the world are with us on this. So understand you are not alone, primarily. And take strength from that. Secondly, self-care is important. Please take care of yourselves. If you let yourself go over this, you're giving these bastards power over you. Don't let them do that. There's that phrase, anyway, the Latin phrase, don't let the bastards get you down. I don't have it off the top of my head. It was Handmaid's Tale. But understand, because understand, right now, the politics of the opposition and this new administration is not about making people's lives better. It's about pissing off the people and harming the people that they disagree with. Their life sustenance is your pain, your depression, and your self-doubt. Do not give in to that. Don't give in to it. Because when you're giving, they do not deserve any free rent in your head. Don't give it to them. Now, this next thing is kind of difficult to accept, and it's number 3, but it's something you need to understand. Nothing good is going to come of this. Nothing good. It's going to suck on levels that we have yet even begun to comprehend or imagine. But here's the thing. You will get through this. You will survive this. Now, I would totally recommend anybody that's watching this and doubts that, look into and is feeling like, aimless and a little bit like ennui over this. I recommend getting a book called Meditations by Marcus Aurelius and looking into the philosophy of Stoicism, because you need to absorb that. The book Meditations by Marcus Aurelius is a very short collection of diary entries by a former Roman emperor, and it is one of the most important books ever written by a human being, I believe. More than one great American has owned it, and if you're cool with having like toilet reading, a toilet bookshelf, have that ready, because every time you'll go in, you'll open that book and you'll find a short passage that'll fit your needs for that moment, and you'll walk out of the bathroom much wiser and much better as an individual. So, again, I'm going to echo what I said before. The right is not about improving people's lives these days. I wouldn't say the right. I would say this bizarre fascist movement. I mean, Dick Cheney is right-wing as it can get, and he's no longer with them. So I would say these fascists, They want you to be miserable. Smile. Happiness defeats them. Remember that scene in The Grinch Steals Christmas or whatever? They are not, crying from the darkness I am bringing. They are actually singing. When Donald Trump looks at, he just gets up every morning hoping that everybody who hates him just is thinking about him. No. Off the shoulder, move on with things, smile. And here's the thing, there's a principle in Buddhism and in psychology, and it's true. If you do smile, you will feel better. And you'll piss off any Proud Boy, neo-Nazi, fascist, or Trump if he happens to walk in at any time. So, now, also, if you're not aware what you're going through right now, basically the majority of this country right now is going through the process, the stages of grief. And if you're not aware of those, these are essential to experience to come to a full closure in the wake of any, whether it be a personal tragedy, a death of the family, or some other bad thing that happened to you. And these steps, in no particular order, are denial, bargaining, depression. I'm sorry, let's go from the top. Denial, bargaining, depression, anger, and acceptance. Now, ever since the election, I've been floating on anger, because here's the thing. Well, as you'll see later on, my attitude toward the people who voted for Trump, and again, this is to the people down below in the comment section who are going to accuse me of being a hate monger and full of hate. I am disappointed with these with any Trump voter, but I don't hate them. I would have to say that, I mean, while I am not a Christian, I would say in this situation, I am resorting to the old phrase, what would Jesus do? And Jesus, in the situation, not the Jesus that's embracing the gun and et cetera, and all these crazy right-wing fantasies of what Jesus is, but the Jesus of the Bible. He, what would Jesus do? He would forgive them. He would say, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Now, and like I said, these steps, I'm sorry, fascism, sorry, a little bit of a typo there. Ideally, you're supposed to end with acceptance. Now, if you're anything like me and a lot of other people in this country, I doubt that acceptance can come to a lot of people here. I can only speak from my own feelings and motivations, but for me, acceptance of fascism or a fascist authoritarian fundamentalist theocratic autocracy is unacceptable. I can never accept that. It's like water and oil. And I'm pretty sure the right, they if we shake it long enough, it creates an emulsion. Yeah. And maybe you can shake up things long enough and maybe keep an emulsion together, but they will always separate. I think the United States of America and fascism, open, straight up authoritarian fascism in the form that Donald Trump will be implementing and his administration will be implementing in the coming months will well, again, it will not be acceptable. Long story short, I don't want to get off of rambling. Anybody who's watched me in my game development streams knows that I tend to ramble, and I apologize, but I'm keeping it to a minimum. Now, for those like me, I would suggest ending in anger. Now, again, anger is not hatred. Use your anger as a motivation going forward in a constructive, non-violent manner. And I want to emphasize that, non-violent, because understand, fascism relies on violence to justify its own actions and in its own actions. Fascism is violence is to fascism as peanut butter is to peanut butter cups, Reese's peanut butter cups. So do not go to their level, because it may be at a certain point. It may be necessary, because this is another video, subject entirely. But understand that violence is the only communication that fascists do understand. So for right now, violence is to be avoided at all costs, because you don't want to play on their field. Play on the field where we're strongest. Now, understand that going forward, the only thing that the right wing and Trump and his bunch want from you are subservience and acceptance. Don't give it to them, because if you do, you become an accomplice. The greatest power you wield over these bastards is that you know in your heart and in your soul that you will never bend your knee to them. You will never be like Winston Smith in that final page of 1984, where he says, "Oh, I love Big Brother." No. Understand, just existing in opposition to them is the biggest strength and biggest weapon that you have against them. And that's one of the reasons why violence is not necessary. Now, finally, in this particular list of items, we only have one president at a time. And Biden is in office for at least 3 more months. Well, no, 3 more months. Use this time to best effect. Trump and his bunch are not going to come in for another couple of months. So understand, it's not... I'm going to cover this about worrying and panicking later. It's time to worry, but not time to panic. Okay? Again, avoid violence. Now, what to expect? This is something that this is something that is kind of hard to really accept at this point. It's very hard to internalize. But just know that the United States as we have known it throughout our lives and our history is over. We are going to go through the most chaotic and regressive political upheaval that very well might dwarf the previous Civil War in size. Because we've been in a Cold War in this country, Cold Civil War in this country now for, well, basically ever since Reagan left office. So anyway, Republicans could not accept, that his successor lost after one term, because and this is a long history, basically, and from one point onward, they just carried that resentment because, well, anyway, all these other subjects, and Grandpa Eric needs to stay on subject. So here, just know that it's over. It's different. It's going to be different on so many levels that we can't even comprehend it right now, but please anticipate this, okay? Because the reason that we're going to be different from here on out is because through the inaction of the voters that I mentioned previously, we are going to become a single-party, overtly fascist, autocratic state. Elections will be fully meaningless after this point. We are going to become a quote-unquote democracy in the tradition of Vladimir Putin's Russia and Viktor Orban's Hungary, where basically we are going to have one-party Republican rule from here on out, and they'll allow elections, but yeah, that we're living in a one-party state from this point on. Now, these are other important things to keep in mind here. Trump is not president. He never wanted to be president. If you are not aware, the term president is not pulled out of anyone's butt. It means someone who presides Donald Trump has no interest in presiding or deciding or doing anything. He just wants to rule. He wants to be the guy at the top, that golden person that everybody bends their knee to. So, and before I get into this next subject, because it's kind of deep, Grandpa Eric needs to keep his mouth lubricated, because I rarely speak at length like this in my mouth. I don't want my mouth to become dry. I will be right back. Thank you. So, understand that Donald Trump never had any interest in being president, and I will back that up. Like I said, I am not bad mouthing President. No, I'm sorry, I am not bad mouthing that individual. He will never be president in my mind, of course. I am not bad mouthing or vilifying Donald Trump. I am simply repeating things that he himself said. When he ran in the first time, he asked several people to run as vice president. Basically, he said, "You're going to do all the duties. I sit in the Oval Office and have beautiful pictures taken of me." Not in those words, but that was basically it. And one of them, those individuals went on to give the nomination speech. One of those Republican politicians went on to give the nomination speech for Joseph Biden in the 2020 Democratic Convention. But anyway, from here on out, RFK Jr., Elon Musk, and J.D. Vance will be running the United States government under the guidance of the Heritage Foundation. We all now know that RFK Jr. is a loon who believes that vaccines cause autism still. He's dangerous. He on every level. And he is going to be put in charge basically of the National Institutes of Health and anything related to healthcare in the United States. Elon Musk apparently is going to be put in charge of streamlining the United States government. And here's an individual who took one of the most successful social media platforms on the planet and turned it into, well, no, it's lost 80% of its value. Elon Musk's defenders will say, well, it lost 80% of the value he paid for it. It was never worth as much as he paid for it. Well, that just proves how much of an idiot Elon Musk is, that he paid more for Twitter than it was worth. So that's the guy that's going to be in charge of streamlining our government. And J.D. Vance is a misogynistic incel pig who joined Catholicism because, well, in his own words, he said it was old. And, just watch a few, incel podcasts and you'll understand what he's talking about there. Now, these people will be, basically the puppets of the overarching people who run our upcoming administration. And that's the Heritage Foundation. They are the people who drafted Project 2025. If you have not heard about them, well, golly gee. What rock have you been under? Anyway. So everything that the Heritage Foundation presented in Project 2025 will be pushed through in an expedited manner within the first weeks, probably within the first days of his administration. Now, what I'm going to outline below of what's going to happen over those weeks is not a complete list, but it's a partial list, and it should give you pause when you think about what we're going to be facing. So, public transit is going to be severely cut back, if not eliminated in every place that they can. Project 2025 believes that federal funds earmarked for public transit should be given to private vehicle operating ride-sharing services like Uber and Lyft. So basically, federal public transit funds will be given to Uber and Lyft. No more Environmental Protection Agency. It might continue to exist, but not in any meaningful form whatsoever. There will be reduced regulation and monitoring of all these things that kill us, and there are going to be outbreaks of more disease because they do not believe in regulation and such. We recently had a huge listeria outbreak here in the United States. We're going to be seeing a heck of a lot more outbreaks like that, especially with RFK running the health agencies in this country. No more post office. The Republican Party, this may be news to some people, has hated the post office for literally decades because it is an example of a government agency that does work incredibly efficiently, and does it in conjunction with its own independent union. And the Republicans cannot stand that. A government-run agency that deals with a independent union and does its job well. They don't want government to work. So now that Trump is back in office, Louis DeJoy will do everything that he can to destroy the post office, which is an institution, by the way, which predates the creation of the United States itself. It was created before the United States. No more Department of Education. If it doesn't exist, it will be similarly curtailed. Now, there are going to be other major agencies of the government. They're going to be disbanded in this manner or severely cut back. And this is one of those situations that if you happen to live in a blue state, will not be as bad for you. And I will be explaining below. So trust me, some good news is coming. All right. And I hate to go from an encouraging word or to this. No more LGBTQ plus rights. Those are going to be severely curtailed, especially trans individuals. One of the first people I spoke to on the Peace Island Discord yesterday was an individual who was afraid that they would not be able to go through with their transition because of what just happened, and that really sucks. No more ACA, which you should know is Obamacare. Understand the last time that Trump tried to destroy it without a plan to replace it. The only thing that stopped that from happening was John McCain. John McCain isn't there anymore. It's going to get defeated, and there's going to be no replacement. And that is going to throw the entirety of the United States healthcare system into absolute chaos. They will attempt a nationwide abortion ban, and I believe there is an 85% chance they are going to be able to get it through immediately. And the Supreme Court will, of course, uphold it. Trump's proposed mass deportation will affect between 15 to 20 million people, and that will qualify as one of the largest mass migrations of human beings since the days of Stalin's 5-year plans. Further, Ukraine will cease to exist as an independent state. Russia will basically, we are going to stop all military support for Ukraine, and they are going to have to capitulate to Russia. Zelensky is going to be deposed. They are going to turn those 4, republics, like the Donbass and the others, into parts of Russia, and whatever remains of Ukraine will just be a Russian-controlled rump state. Palestine, because here's the thing, Trump, sometimes he does speak the truth, and he says, if I am president, I will end that war immediately. And that's true, because he will just go to Putin and say, I stopped all military aid to Ukraine, take him, you're my buddy now, and that would be the end of the war. Because Trump believes in surrender. But that's neither here nor there. Now, Palestine as a nation will cease to exist, and I believe Israel will probably, unilaterally annex what's a little independent part of the West Bank is going to be annexed, along probably with the Gaza Strip in its entirety. There will be no Palestinian country anymore. NATO will cease to exist in any practical manner. And again, that is going to be an upheaval in geopolitics that we have not seen since the Second World War. So, what do you do? Having heard all this bad stuff, that I can tell you, I'm not hating. I'm not pulling this stuff out of my butt. These are things that, again, Donald Trump, his aides, and his platform say that he is going to do. Now, what you can do, get a passport. If you're a United States citizen, get a passport. This will give you the ability to leave the country should it become necessary. And I am saying this in all dead 100% seriousness. That might become a necessity. There's a phrase in politics: worry about everything but panic about nothing. Unlike the people who voted for this, you know now what is coming and you'll be prepared. And I'm going to talk more about that below. If you voted, take comfort that in the eyes of history, you did the right thing. And you will be recognized for it. In one way or another, you will be recognized for it. And you are on the right side of history. It has been proven time and time and time again. If you did not vote and woke up yesterday wondering what the hell happened, use this as a lesson, because you, number one, this lesson is going to be very, very hard for you. Very, very difficult. And also understand, because of your inaction, you will be one of those blamed for what is to come. And that's going to suck for you. And all I can say is, sucks to be you. So, keep these other things in mind. Fascist regimes are violent by nature. I've spoke about that before. Whatever accusation they hurl at their opposition after their overt violence will be a confession. And that is a phrase that you need to know. Keep in mind over as things progress and get worse and worse. And I notice there's nothing to here. Two. Every confession, no, I'm sorry, every one of their accusations will be a confession. That is the most important thing to keep in mind, because you will see it play out time and time and time again. They are masters of projection. Blatant, shameless, childish projection. And here's something that we're sort of fortunate in. Number three, in a way, I hate to say use the word fortunate in this circumstance, but we're fortunate in some ways. We are witnessing here in the United States a descent into fascism, a willing descent into authoritarian fascism. We have, through democratic means, rejected democracy. This has happened in the past. We live in an age of literacy. We live in an age where books are plentiful, and we live in an age of the internet. Learn from history. There are unfortunately so many examples of this happening. Learn from history so that those people didn't have to go through the same thing in vain, and you will be better prepared. Now, here's another thing that you have to take hope in. Well, a little bit of solace in. Not so much hope, but solace. They'll fail. As we saw during his last time in Washington, Trump is a bumbling idiot. He hurts his followers and those closest to him the most. Ask Michael Cohen, his former lawyer, and the dozens of other formerly high-ranking officials who lost their integrity or their careers by standing by him until they lost everything. There are many, many, many of them. If you're not listening to them, if you haven't heard them, you're not looking. Trump will fail, just as he failed last time. Yes, he has more power, but the thing is you can give somebody ultimate power to go out and tell everybody that the sky is green and that grass eats meat, but that ain't gonna work. It just ain't gonna work, because it ain't true. And Trump does not deal with facts or reality in any measurable way at all. Now, something is going to happen to you, and it's happened to me. It happened to me in 2016, and it's happening now. These new fascists are going to come to you, or the people who voted for it, and they're like, oh, come on, I'm not a fascist. Some of them will come to you, and they'll go, trust me, everything is going to be great from now on, man. These individuals, these people who are coming to you right now telling you, just abandon your principles, just lean back and surrender and give up. These people who are telling you these lies, these people are going to be the first to lose their businesses, their families, or their lives. In my own personal experience, after 2016, I had no less than 5 people came up to me after Trump stumbled into office the first time via an outdated tradition called the Electoral College, which was put in place to preserve the power of the slave states. Anyway, these people, they all had businesses. One of them was two of them were multimillionaires. I don't want to give their money, their names, their names and such, but because I don't want to sound like Trump, who was always going, great people, the richest people. But trust me, 5 people. 2 of them were multimillionaires. They all owned their own companies, and they all came to me after this going, Eric, trust me, we disagree, but man, everything's going to be great. By the end of the Trump administration, they had all lost their entire businesses, and 2 of them were homeless. So, don't give in to those people that are coming to you with this snake oil, these lies, saying everything's going to be great right now, and you just have to sit back and ignore what your lying eyes and ears are telling you. No. Stand by your principles, because, again, history will judge you by your actions and the positions that you take in these coming years. So, now, this is something that ties into what I was talking about earlier. One of the many things that the Heritage Foundation wants to do in Project 2025 is they want to basically shut down a majority of government agencies and devolve that power to the states. Now, here is the basic problem with this, and this is a great unspoken problem with the United States politics, and this is something that's statistically proved. You can just look it up, it's true. Red Republican policies, more often than not, don't work. They simply just do not work. And you can see this in how the federal government works and how it allocates its funds, because how certain parts of the government work, especially these big agencies, is all the states, they toss in money and then they get the money back from the federal government depending on their needs. Understand that for the last few generations, blue states have been funding the bad policies of the red states. We have just basically for generations been letting them play with their very bad policies, delivering bad results for their voters, and still giving them money because we as a country recognize autonomy. Now, if you live in a blue state and these agencies are devolved to your state level, you're going to be fine. But if you live in a state like Oklahoma, oh, they're going to cut it back to you're only going to have to go to school until you're 14. They're going to basically, every red state is going to institute Amish education rules. And if you're not familiar, the Amish, they do that. All Amish children leave school at the age of 14, at 7th grade. Or, I'm sorry, 9th grade, because they believe it makes them prideful. The red states will do this simply because without the money that they were getting from states like Maine, Massachusetts, Oregon, California, Washington, they will not be able to keep their schools. They will not be able to provide the education. They will not be able to provide the health care. They will not be able to provide the food screening. They will not be able to provide the emergency services that they would before Trump does this. So here's the thing. This is going to be awful for people in those states. But you know, there's this German word, Schadenfreude. Get a little bit of Schadenfreude from that. Heritage Foundation wants to do these things. You know, the states, again, that are going to be hurt the most by these policies are the states that voted for him. The red states, the states that use these policies that we here in the blue states pay for. And pat them on the head and go, there, take our money. Go and do your crazy bills about banning trans people in public restrooms. That's fine. You know, because they consider that the most important thing, you know, and banning, you know, drag queen, you know, reading things, because reading is evil, you know, makes you prideful. Now, that is going to be happening more and more. And again, I think what that's going to lead to is that people are going to be leaving those red states. Are going to become more and more a flyover country than they ever were before, as more people come to the states that actually can institute policies that work. Now, I believe that the Trump administration is going to do what they can to force states to implement red policies. In other words, they don't get any money from the federal government. I wouldn't put it back past them, but I believe there's going to be a resurgence in, basically on the blue side, states' rights. And we're going to fight very damn hard in Maine for that. Now, the Trump government, again, this one will, just like last time, I will give it, I'm going to say a 65 to 75% chance. No, I'm going to say 70 to 85% chance that it's going to bring itself down just like it did the last time in the exact same way. Understand, have you ever seen pictures of people before they become president and after? Note that they always age, with the exception of Donald Trump. Of course, he looked the same. Because understand, if you're a president, and I will give this to George W. Bush, he aged tremendously because he gave a crap about the country, its institutions, and the job that he was doing. And he tried to cover all bases, and he aged tremendously. Trump did not, because he didn't give a crap. He did not care. He, by habit, appointed the absolute worst people to head every agency possible. Absolute worst. It's demonstrable. Absolute worst. Goodness gracious. There's a great post-apocalyptic movie. Well, I won't say great, but it's very well done, and it's very dismal and grim, but it's very good. Called Threads. And it begins at the very beginning with this lecture, just a very short, a phrase about how everything is very interconnected. It's a vast network, and everything depends on everything else. And if one part of that web of interdependencies is broken, that break can spread and destabilize everything else. Now, that phrase, you know, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. This country, on a daily basis, the United States of America, and every country really, we're not unique in this, has to deal with thousands of crises every day. Thousands of crises. And we saw in the last administration, the last time Trump was in office, he didn't give a crap. Things just went out of control time and time and time again. And he never learned, he never fixed things, and then we had COVID. And I believe the thing that will bring down the Trump administration this time is the same thing as last time, the health problem. Because understand, we live on a planet with like what, how 8.5 billion now wet bags of mostly water walking and disease walking around. There are so many things that could happen at any time, whether it be in the food system, whether it be in the blood plasma system, whether it be in our healthcare. There are so many places, so many links that could go wrong, and if the president and our government is not on top of them, they break and the entire system will fall apart. And that's what we saw last time. I mean, if you're like, oh, the system, COVID, of course, the people that are probably typing below, COVID was totally misinformation. It never happened. Just like the January 6th insurrection, that lie. No, I understand that was a systemic breakdown, not just of our healthcare system. It was just on every level. Our transportation system. Remember, at a certain point, oil was worth negative money. They couldn't give oil away. Remember, at a certain time, our government was literally having to give everybody money just to keep the government going. Remember that? That meant that our currency was virtually worthless in all practical terms. That is what the Trump administration led to last time, and it will more than likely lead to that again. So unfortunately, it will lead to a lot of deaths. It will lead to a lot of suffering, but understand that he will fail and his government will collapse just like it did the last time. Now, before I get to my final point, Grandpa Eric needs to visit the restroom. I will be right back, and I have intentionally been ignoring any texts or any chats that come in and I don't think I'm going to be addressing them tonight because this is something that I wanted to just get off my chest. And before I take my restroom break, I want to address something that probably also somebody, is just tippy typing down there. I come to this channel because I want to, news about Eric's cat game. Why does he have to go into politics on this? Understand, this is not Peace Island's YouTube channel. This is Eric Blumrich's YouTube channel. So I can do videos about whatever the hell I want. That's why I have like that, AI EBM version of Pants on the Ground. That has nothing to do with Peace Island, but I have it up there. Why don't you complain over there? You can't. You're complaining on this video because you disagree with it. Yeah. I reserve the right to do whatever the hell I want with my own YouTube channel. But anyway, Grandpa Eric needs to go to the restroom, and I will be right back with my final point, and I think it's my most important point here. Okay, and I will be right back. Okay, back again. Now, finally, and there is an end to this. I have pointed this out time and time again. And it's strange that, I mean, in our modern age, people need to understand this. Fascism ends in only two ways: with the perpetrators reviled by history, and or the perpetrators hanging by meat hooks. Now, that is not a threat. That is not saying I am going to do anything. I'm not saying anyone else is going to do anything. I am saying that that is how history has proven innumerable times this ends. Let me show you. Let me show you. This is the image of violence that I've shown time and time again. And just a warning, if you have a problem with this, just tune out. But this is how fascism ends. This is an image here of Benito Mussolini. There he is right there. He is this chubby guy right here. I believe this is his mistress. Two of the other guys are his bodyguards. One of them is his chauffeur, I believe. This is Benito Mussolini, a fascist leader. And I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, we don't unfortunately have any pictures of Hitler's burnt corpse. So this is a fantastic image. Hanging upside down. They let him hang there for several days. Rotting in the sun. People would come by and just shoot guns at them. Hit them with bats. Throw vegetables. And this is how it always ends for the leaders of fascism. Now, you may be thinking, well, goodness gracious, I'm a supporter of fascism. You know, I thought Trump was great, but heavens, even if he winds up like this, you know, I won't be there. No. And this is something that Dan Harmon pointed out. He, of course, is the creator of Rick and Morty and a Community. Hi, Ronan. My kitty cat is here. He's demanding a treat, so you'll have to pardon me. There you go. I'm talking to the world. There you go, buddy. Zach. There you go. Eat them up good. Now, I'm keeping this up for a very important reason, because this is important. I mean, really, people need to have this image burned into their head. The most important people in this image, I think, are not Benito Mussolini. It's not, or his mistress or anything. It's these guys right down here. The lower right. You see that crowd back there? Those are the people that for days came there to fire their guns and curse at and spit at and throw rotten vegetables at these corpses. Now, look at that mass of people out there. Understand that the people in that crowd that are shouting the loudest, and spitting the most and throwing the most vegetables the hardest that they can, there are people who voted for this. They're the very same people who voted for this just a few years earlier. They lost everything, just as I mentioned earlier. Those people who come to you and say, oh, everything's going to be great right now. Just surrender your thoughts. Give in. These people in the crowd that are threw those vegetables at Mussolini, they lost their homes. They lost their businesses. They lost their families, their children, their businesses. They lost everything. And they're angriest because they believed in this. And this is where it got them. People like me, we're at the back laughing at his former supporters and going, well, finally. This is always how it ends. Now, it always ends this way because they keep on trying it time and time and time again. Fascism always ends that way. Now, every iteration of neo-fascists whenever this god-awful movement of fascism rears its ugly head, they think these people that are marching in the parades and, you know, putting on the brown shirts, they think this time they have a cheat code. They have a cheat code. They'll be able to avoid this. We'll be able to, they'll be, in their minds, it's nothing but military parades, smart uniforms, traditional wives, and, beating up brown people for the rest of their lives. But no, it's always going to end up like this. Always. And understand, it might not be a Texaco station. And it's not up to me. If anyone wants to declare I'm making a threat or anything, no, it's not up to me. It's up to history. And history has proven time and time again, there will come a time when these bastards, these people, these reptiles, these scumbags, these bastards, are going to be hanging. It might not be out hanging by their feet from meat hooks. It may not be outside of a Texaco station, but it will happen. And it won't be by any action on myself. It won't be by virtue of any action of the left. It will be because of things that they did. And it's because every time that somebody came and said, please don't, they beat the living shit out of them and laughed. And that's the way it comes. So when that day comes, when that day inevitably comes, you're going to feel the comfort and peace that you felt just about a week ago. That's when it's going to return. And it will come. That day will come. And again, for those the people typing in the comment sections saying that I am threatening violence, I am not. History is guaranteeing violence. Now that we have walked down this path, I will do everything in my power to oppose these individuals and avoid violence. And I urge everybody to do the same. But unfortunately, like I said, these people believe they have a cheat code that allows them to avoid the inevitability of history. So anyway, I've been going on for about an hour now, and I don't want to read any chats, etc., because I know, I came here to say this. And, for those people who say, goodness gracious, I shouldn't talk about politics, I absolutely disagree. I feel that I should have been talking about this far more loudly, because apparently, again, it's a damnation of our country. But we have a very, very poor sense of history in this country that we have allowed ourselves to vote democracy out of existence. But again, history's on our side. Take care, everybody.